The internet and proliferation of devices that help us harness the power of the web have opened a door to the world for us. But this door opens both ways. Safeguarding privacy, whether it be sensitive corporate information or intimate details of the individual, hinges on understanding the open environment technology has made. That's the idea behind TAT's 22nd Forum, What Goes Online Stays Online, Protecting Your Privacy. A good foundation for education on privacy concerns begins with Trinidad and Tobago's legislative framework, which governs how information is treated in this digital dispensation. According to data protection expert Vashti Maraj, the Data Protection Act, passed in 2011, is designed to address the privacy rights of the individual and cover sensitive personal information. There are rules which apply to the handling of information you provide in the case of, for example, business transactions or meeting tax obligations. But the onus rests with you to ensure that your personal data isn't used for purposes other than what you intend.
I'm sure that when you fill out any form that gives your personal information, you sign this little checkbox at the bottom. Now, even when you do transactions online, they have the disclaimer about how they're going to treat with your personal information, because both in Trinidad and internationally, everyone is very concerned about the fact that what they do may be monitored or their privacy may be breached. And I would urge you all to always read the fine print. See what you're consenting to in terms of how your information is going to be used, because they're not allowed to use that information unless they have your consent to use it.
In instances where you cough up every detail of your financial history to access a loan, mortgage or government service, you have the right not only to demand that your personal information be kept under lock and key, but also to challenge how that information is used. But what can you do if your privacy has been breached? According to Ms. Maraj, the creation of the Office of the Information Commissioner under the Data Protection Act means you will be able to do far more than write a strongly worded letter to the editor.
So the Office of the Information Commissioner is intended to be an independent body with the responsibility for the monitoring and administration of the Act to ensure its compliance. The Information Commissioner has the power to conduct audits, and that audit is not just auditing a governmental body. They can audit any business organization. They're supposed to set, the Office of the Information Commissioner is supposed to set standards, and I'll get into that, for data matching, data collection, and exactly how each organization it exercises its code of practice with regard to information security and the protection of personal information.
Legislation is also working to keep pace with the rapid advances in the various ways we communicate. This, however, doesn't mean we can abdicate our responsibility to protect ourselves, particularly when it comes to online communication. Senior State Attorney Carol Douglas points out that social media sites like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter actually hoard our personal data. With a cavalier click of the mouse, you're making an open book of your life.
This site, one, there's a voluntary perspective of what happened. So your voluntary willingness to give up information is you give your age, your gender, height, etc., etc. And what you have done is create a profile of yourself. Now remember, this is going to a server where that information is being held, and what that information eventually is doing is creating a profile. And very much so, that information can come up later where you could be identified. And you may recall this incident where the child was being assaulted. Or like this incident on Facebook where, for example, you had the woman who was vandalizing this car on Aripita Avenue. And the person was actually located. That individual, her name, her address, who she was, this was on social media, and it was not too difficult to indicate who that individual was.
Online privacy concerns extend far beyond the computer but apply to all the tech gadgets that have become indispensable accessories of everyday life. Smartphones, iPads, you name it. Ever wonder how sometimes the internet seems to know exactly who you are, sending you alerts on articles or sales you might be interested in? Well, that's all part of the new age, one in which your information is being scanned, processed and packaged into a sort of digital insight.
So it may very well be that next time you go to Google or Yahoo or whatever the case may be, you would see certain things that appear. Let's just say you're looking for a car. And it so happens that in the sidebars where the ads appear, you see advertisements for cars. Or your search on Google is now ranked in a certain way. Or your Yahoo, and sometimes you go to Yahoo homepage, you see all these things that are somehow or the other very relevant to what you were searching for. Sometimes on Amazon.com, all of a sudden you see suggestions. So what has happened again is that you have been identified. You have been profiled as an individual who is looking for a car.
And while someone trying to sell you a car is not the worst thing that can happen online, this gives a good indication of how personal information, which you supply willingly, is used to track your movements in the virtual world. The age-old saying, "Diamonds are forever," is at risk of being replaced with a new one: "The internet is forever." Mr. Douglas explains that somehow users believe pressing the Control-Alt-Delete buttons somehow erases all traces of their internet footprint. It's not that simple. The internet has an exceptional memory.
So everything we do is on the internet. Everything we do on the internet, is recorded. There are the processing of profiles. So the internet more or less has a pretty good profile of who you are, what you like, what you don't like, your age, your sex, your gender, age, sex, and gender, and so forth. And that information can be used by governments, and it can be used by companies for advertising, employers, etc.
Many of us are routinely bombarded by text sales promotions on our phones. They are out there and they know who you are. But there are things you can do to take control of your privacy.
To protect yourselves, a few little recommendations, I would simply say, configure your browser so that you're not tracked necessarily as much as you can. You could use certain search engines. I know one of the popular ones is called DuckDuckGo. That does not leave a trace, because if you do search on Google, you'll notice that the searches tend to be more and more, very peculiar as to, I was looking for that, why is that keep on coming up? You could also have apps that would specifically protect you against Trojans, malware, tracking devices and so forth, and ensure, or at least help you with safe web browsing.
It cannot be understated, with all of the mechanisms, both legal and technological, to shield your privacy online, the ultimate responsibility rests with you, the user. Director of CyberSafe Trinidad and Tobago, Darren Dorey, knows this all too well. Many of us are familiar with the Nigerian prince searching for a safe haven for his millions, and of course he wants you to be his banker. But with the advent of more sophisticated online scams, the devastation they cause can be significant.
So you have, between October 2012 and September 2014, people in Trinidad and Tobago lost over $2 million to lottery scams. So basically, this is the email that people would have received, and I'm sure every one of us here received it already, that your uncle, right, who you never heard about, left you a fortune, and all you're required to do is send $5,000 to start the process. We're sitting here and laughing. I know of people who've lost their house. They sell so many things, they mortgage their house because that first $5,000 was the bait. So when the individual on the other side of the computer realizes, get somebody, they say, okay, good. And they continue the email trail. They decide, all right, I will send you £1,000. So now you get some money. So you're thinking this is legit because I give you 5,000, I get 10,000. You don't hear no communication after a while. Then you get this email or a phone call if you divulge that information, saying, okay, but we just reached a stumbling block here and I need to get a little bit more funds to continue the process. Now, obviously, you just received £10,000. I'm going to give you the money. And that's what happens.
Navigating the, at times, murky world of the internet means you have to have a good eye for the suspicious. There are telltale signs in emails and websites that let you know they aren't necessarily on the up and up.
We all know Amazon.com, right? Now, Amazon.com, in a similar fashion to all of the very big companies, when they are communicating with you, they would do so in a very personal way. So the first telltale sign, if you receive an email from Amazon or Apple, for example, and it says their client, realize that something is wrong, because Amazon knows my name. It should really read there, Darren. And if you've only done business or purchased things on Amazon.com, then why am I receiving an email from management at MAZON Canada.ca? Now realize it's not Amazon Canada, you know. You realize you're using the @ sign to make you believe that it's Amazon?
So forewarned is forearmed. Avoiding online fraudsters means arming yourself with techniques to shield your personal information from prying eyes. This is particularly important when dealing with business transactions on the internet.
I don't want to harp too much on the do's and don'ts of online commerce, but it's pretty straightforward, and these points take care of it. When you're purchasing something online, purchase it from a reputable online merchant, not some website that you've really never heard about before. The key thing, however, and I mentioned it before, HTTPS. That's a secure channel that you're going to be entering your credit card information and so on with. The most important thing that I'd like to state here today is this part. Don't store your credit card with the merchant. So yes, again, it's convenient, but I think we have to weigh the convenience against the possible risk. So Amazon, for example, allows you to save your credit card information with them. But we've just been through a whole series of discussions as to how your Amazon account could be tarnished. So if one click is on, or someone could just hack into your Amazon account and your credit card information is stored there already, then they could just buy what they want, right? And the same thing also goes for other sites that store credit card information. It's always good to enter that information every time you need to go and do a purchase. You might think it might be a task, but we don't want to wait for the situation where you're being charged a whole host of money and you want to know, you go to the bank and what's going on here, you know. And as far as the bank is concerned, it's a valid transaction. It's just that you didn't do it. Where possible, you can use PayPal. And we've heard about PayPal, but one of the advantages of using PayPal is that you store your credit card with these folks, and you can go to many other different sites and pay with PayPal. So you don't have to enter your credit card information all over the place. So that is also recommended.
But there is a terror online that eclipses financial grifters or identity thieves. Predators lurking in the shadows of chat rooms pounce on our children, taking advantage of their curiosity and naivety. Parents must protect their children from the dark side of the internet by establishing guidelines for how they surf the web. They can also restrict children's access on a particular device or block access to specific sites. When it comes to staying safe online, there is a lot to know. Members of the audience shared their own experiences and concerns revolving around cybersecurity.
I was a victim of a Facebook hacking incident. When I reported it to the cyber unit on Richmond Street, one of the officers told me that all you have to do is just change your password. My question is, should I pursue the matter legally against the perpetrator, the person that did that to me, or should I just leave it like that? Because it is something that I think it happens to a lot of people, where people go into their Facebook, you know the person, I know the person, they go on into their Facebook and they share whatever you have on Facebook.
There is a computer misuse, the Cybercrime Act, the Computer Misuse Act, and there are offenses. I'm not too sure of the specifics in your case, but if it does fall within the act, then you can go to the police and it is a criminal offense.
I was walking through my area at night and I've seen so much houses and buildings with cameras. What are my rights for my privacy of these people capturing my data and building a profile where I am being monitored.
Google, I think we all know Google Earth. And there's a feature on Google Earth called Street View, where you can actually bring the browser and you can actually walk on the street. And there was a case, I believe it's in France or Spain, where people sued Google to take off their house because you could make out, you could identify individuals' residences, houses, as the case may be. And as you rightly said, as you mentioned there, so Google had, by law, they had to actually blur people's houses because persons were saying that was an infringement, an invasion of their privacy. You could actually say, listen, your rights are being violated because every time you walk outside your door, there's a camera and somebody's looking at me, and that is an invasion of my privacy.
Would you be able to say how secure our online banking is in Trinidad and Tobago?
I know that all of them have to go through a very rigorous process before they could launch their online banking website. So it's not to say that they can tomorrow decide, or a new bank tomorrow decide, I'm going to put up online banking. You have to go through a lot more rigors, for want of a better word, and they need to be charted through different tests and so on from external companies before they can launch their site. That being said, it doesn't mean it's not penetrable. I would always suggest, as I did before, if you are going to use online banking, if that online bank site provides two-factor authentication, in the sense that you don't only have to enter a username and password to gain access, then I would say yes, I believe they are more secure than the other site which only asks for a username and password. There are some local banks that have, I believe it's a card, and you have to use some numbers and so on. So that's unique to you, and it's going to be very difficult, obviously, for someone to gain access. However, we have to bear in mind as well, even though after we log in, should we keep that browser open and leave that session there and go about doing other things as well? Because we would have, for want of a better analogy, open the burglar proof, take out the lock, and open this and disarm the alarm, walk in the house, and then leave everything open and go and sleep. So we also have a little bit of homework to do when we are browsing online.
The rewards offered by the internet are paralleled only by the pitfalls. Hackers, data bandits, and fraudsters seem to spend every waking moment inventing new ways of taking advantage of the unsuspecting. For this reason, TAT's 22nd Forum focused on empowering internet users with tips on how to protect yourself against unscrupulous individuals. Taking control of the way you share information online is the best defense against a faceless enemy, one you cannot see, but one who is watching you.